Welcome to the Deep Dive, the indispensable shortcut to being well-informed. Today, we are really undertaking a deep dive into something fundamental for anyone in security leadership. We're talking about the mindset needed for the Certified Information Systems Security Professional, the CISSP.
That's right. We're zeroing in on Domain 1 security and risk management.
It's the cornerstone, really.
Absolutely. This is where the whole security program philosophy gets set. It
Yeah.
dictates, how you spend money, how you make decisions. And for the exam itself, it carries about 16% average weight on the CISSP exam.
16%, so you absolutely have to nail this.
It's non-negotiable for passing, yeah.
And speaking of the exam, we can't avoid talking about the format, that CISSP exam.
Right, the computerized adaptive testing. It's different.
It's not your typical test where you can skip around, flag things, come back later.
Exactly. The CIA exam, it actually adapts to you. It uses algorithms, basically, to pick the next question based on whether you got the last one right or wrong. The idea is to figure out your competency level efficiently.
So it gets harder if you're doing well.
Or it might stay around a certain difficulty if you're hovering near the pass-fail line. You need a score of 700 out of 1,000 to pass. And the number of questions isn't fixed, usually somewhere between 100 and 150 items.
But the real kicker is the psychology of it, right?
Oh, definitely. Once you answer and hit next, that's it. No going back, no second thoughts.
You have to commit.
You have to commit.
Yeah.
Which means if you haven't truly adopted the right mindset, especially for Domain 1, hesitation can really hurt you.
And that mindset, particularly if you come from a deep technical background, maybe configuring firewalls or coding, it's a big shift.
It is. It's about embracing the manager's view.
Okay, explain that, the manager's view.
Well, the CISSP isn't testing if you're the best sysadmin or pen tester. It validates that you can manage the overall security posture. And that's fundamentally a business function.
You're managing risk for the business.
Exactly. You're paid to manage risk, not just implement cool tech. So sometimes the most technically secure solution, it gets shot down because it doesn't make business sense. It fails the cost-benefit analysis, the business justification.
So we're talking about optimizing security, finding the right level, proportionality.
Proportionality, that's the perfect word. The best answer on the exam, and often in real life, is the one that aligns security with the business mission. It focuses on what's an acceptable level of risk for the organization. It provides the necessary protection.
While also being cost-effective.
And least disruptive to actually doing business.
Yeah.
Cost-effective is key.
Let's use that classic example, the wiring closet one. I think it really drives this home.
Yeah, it's a good one. So imagine you need to secure a simple wiring closet, not holding crown jewels, just network gear. You might look at, say, 3 options. Option 1, a fancy biometric fingerprint scanner, high-tech. Option 2, maybe a smart card reader, still electronic, tied into access control systems.
Right.
Option 3, a good quality, sturdy combination padlock, simple mechanical.
Okay, 3 levels of tech and cost.
Right. Now, the purely technical person might immediately lean towards the fingerprint scanner. Best authentication, non-repudiation.
Logs everything.
Logs everything.
Right.
But the manager, wearing the CISSP hat, steps back. They ask, okay, what's the actual risk here? What's the financial impact, the operational impact, if someone gets into this specific closet?
And if it's just a standard wiring closet, the impact is probably limited.
Probably limited. Annoying, maybe causes a brief outage, but not catastrophic.
Right.
So spending thousands on a biometric scanner, it's disproportionate.
It fails that proportionality test.
Exactly. The manager chooses the combination padlock. Why? Because it provides reasonable protection for that asset's value. It meets the need for due care. We'll define that more soon, but at the lowest appropriate cost.
So you save the expensive, high-friction controls for the things that really matter. The data center, the sensitive R&D labs.
Precisely. The decision is driven by the business case and the risk, not just by the technology's features. That's the manager's view.
Okay, but you mentioned due care. It feels like there's always a but.
Sure.
Is there a limit to this cost-benefit thinking?
There is one absolute limit, one factor that trumps everything else: cost, convenience, even equipment protection.
And that is?
Personnel safety. Human life.
Always number one.
Always. This isn't just a nice idea. It's a moral, legal, and operational imperative baked into the CISSP philosophy. If a security decision involves a potential risk to people's lives or safety,
Safety wins.
safety wins.
Right.
Every single time. You choose the option that preserves life, even if it means accepting greater risk to data or systems.
Use that server room example again, the one about the glass.
Right, okay. So you're designing a data center thinking about the glass used indoors or observation windows. For pure security against intrusion, you might choose laminated glass.
Like a car windshield, tough to break through.
Exactly. Very strong, provides a great physical barrier against someone trying to force their way in.
Seems like the obvious security choice.
From a pure anti-intrusion perspective, maybe. But now think about an emergency inside that data center. A fire, a chemical leak from the suppression system, anything requiring rapid evacuation.
That super strong laminated glass suddenly becomes a trap.
Precisely. People can't break it easily to get out. It hinders escape.
So the managerial safety first choice is different.
It's tempered glass. Tempered glass is designed, when it breaks, to shatter into lots of small, relatively harmless cube-like pieces.
Like a side window on a car.
Yes. It breaks safely, allowing people to escape quickly in an emergency.
Yeah.
So even though laminated glass is technically more secure against forced entry.
Tempered glass is the right choice because it prioritizes life safety.
Correct. Understanding that hierarchy people first always is absolutely fundamental for Domain 1.
Okay, so we have the manager's view, prioritizing risk and business needs, with the non-negotiable rule of personnel safety first. Now, let's build the technical foundation, the language of security, the 5 pillars.
Right. This starts, of course, with the classic CIA triad.
CIA. Everyone studying security knows this one.
Confidentiality. Preventing unauthorized disclosure. Simple concept, but broad application.
Like encryption.
Encryption is a key control for confidentiality, yeah. Also, access control lists, need-to-know basis, physical security like locks on doors, anything that keeps information from being seen by people who shouldn't see it.
Okay. C is confidentiality.
Integrity. This is about ensuring the accuracy and completeness of information, preventing unauthorized alteration.
So making sure the data hasn't been tampered with.
Exactly. Think hashing algorithms to verify file integrity, digital signatures to ensure a message hasn't changed, version control systems, strict change management processes. It's all about trusting that the data is reliable.
And
Availability, making sure that authorized users can access the information and resources when they need them. Timely, uninterrupted access.
this sounds like redundancy, backups.
Absolutely. Resilience planning, redundant systems, RAID, clusters, disaster recovery sites, backups, and tested restore processes. Availability keeps business running.
So that's the core CIA triad. But you said 5 pillars. What else do we need?
We need 2 more concepts that are increasingly critical, especially when you get into legal and regulatory stuff. Authenticity and non-repudiation.
Okay, authenticity, proving something is genuine.
Exactly. Authenticity verifies that the source of data is genuine or that a user is who they claim to be. It answers the question, is this really you? Or did this message really come from this source?
So strong passwords, MFA, digital certificates,
All contribute to authenticity. Biometrics, too. It's about establishing identity.
and non-repudiation. That sounds more complex.
But builds on authenticity. Non-repudiation provides proof, irrefutable proof, ideally. It ensures that a sender cannot later deny having sent a message that's non-repudiation of origin.
Okay.
And sometimes that a receiver cannot deny having received it, non-repudiation of delivery.
Why is this so important?
Think legal contracts, financial transactions. If you digitally sign a purchase order, non-repudiation mechanisms aim to prove that you, and only you, could have authorized that transaction. You can't just claim, oh, someone must have stolen my password.
So it provides legal weight.
Exactly. Strong non-repudiation relies on things like digital signatures, backed by a trusted public key infrastructure, PKI.
So confidentiality, integrity, availability, authenticity, and non-repudiation. Those are our 5 guiding principles.
Those are the goals. Every security control we talk about ultimately serves one or more of these pillars. #I, defining security governance and frameworks.
All right, we have the principles, the pillars. Now, how does an organization actually put these into practice? That brings us to security governance.
Right. And the first thing we need to do here is draw a clear line between governance and management. People mix these up all the time.
Oh, what's the difference?
Governance is about steering the ship. It's high-level strategic. Governance sets the overall direction. It ensures that security activities actually support the organization's business strategy, its mission, its goals, its legal requirements.
So governance asks, are we doing the right things?
Exactly. Is our security program aligned with where the business wants to go? Is it addressing the right risks?
And management then is?
Management is rowing the boat. It's operational tactical. Management takes the direction set by governance and makes it happen day to day.
Executing the plan.
Executing the plan. Implementing the controls, monitoring them, allocating the resources, making sure things are working correctly. Management asks, are we doing things right?
So one sets direction, the other executes.
Precisely. And sometimes there's, a healthy tension there. Governance might set a really high bar, and management has to figure out how to meet it within budget and without breaking everything.
Makes sense. Now, to make this governance effective, you need structure, documentation, a hierarchy of rules.
Absolutely critical. This isn't just paperwork. It's how you ensure consistency, enforce standards, and frankly cover yourself legally. It starts at the very top with policy.
Policy.
High-level stuff, very high-level. Policies are mandatory strategic documents. They have to be approved by senior management, like the CEO or the board. They state the organization's intent and expectations. A policy doesn't usually tell you how to do something. It tells you what must be done. For instance, all sensitive corporate data must be classified and protected according to its classification level.
Broad statement of intent. Doesn't change often.
Rarely. They should be enduring principles. Flowing down from policy, you get standards.
Standards. Okay, so these add detail.
They do. Standards are also mandatory. They provide specific rules to ensure that policies are implemented consistently across the whole organization. They create uniformity.
So if the policy says encrypt sensitive data,
The standard might say, all data classified as confidential must be encrypted using AES 256. It makes the policy requirement specific and measurable.
got it. Policy, what? Standard, how specifically? What's next? Baselines.
Lines. These are really important for system hardening and consistency. A baseline defines the minimum level of security configuration required for a particular type of system or application, or even a data classification level.
Like a minimum standard for a Windows server build.
Exactly. It might specify minimum patch levels, require security services that must be running, disallowed ports, minimum password complexity settings for that specific system type. Before you deploy a new Windows server, it must meet that baseline configuration. It's the starting point.
Okay. Policy, standard, baseline. Getting more granular. What about the actual how-to instructions?
Now you're talking about procedures and guidelines.
Difference?
Big difference in terms of obligation. Procedures are the step-by-step mandatory instructions. The detailed checklist, how do you actually onboard a new employee? How do you request a firewall change? The procedure spells it out, click by click sometimes, mandatory.
And guidelines.
Guidelines are different. They're recommendations, best practices. They're usually optional. They offer advice on how to achieve a certain goal, but they allow for discretion based on the situation. Here are some suggested ways to secure your home Wi-Fi, for example. Helpful, but not enforced like a procedure.
So policy, standard, baseline, procedure, and guidelines are sort of off to the side as advice.
That's a good way to think about it. That hierarchy provides clarity.
Now, for this governance structure to work, people need to know who is responsible for what. Roles and responsibilities.
Absolutely critical. And here we need to distinguish between accountability and responsibility.
Okay, not the same thing.
Not quite. Accountability is where the buck stops. The person who is accountable has the ultimate authority and is answerable for the outcome, even if they didn't do the hands-on work. Responsibility lies with the person or team actually performing the task.
So who holds the accountability for data protection?
That's the data owner, or sometimes called the data controller, especially under laws like GDPR.
This is a business role.
Typically, yes. A senior manager who is responsible for that data asset. The data owner is accountable for ensuring the data is protected. They determine its classification level, like public, internal, confidential, restricted, its value, and they approve the security controls needed to protect it. They sign off on it.
They own the risk, essentially.
They own the risk associated with that data. Now, they don't usually implement the controls themselves. That's where the operational roles come in, like the data custodian.
Data custodian. This sounds more technical. IT folks.
Generally, yes.
Okay.
The data custodian has the technical responsibility for protecting the data according to the rules set by the owner. They're the ones doing the work, implementing the backups, applying encryption, managing access control lists, maintaining the systems where the data lives, ensuring it's available.
Okay. Owner is accountable. Business.
Right.
Custodian is responsible. Technical. Is there anyone else?
Yes, and this role causes some confusion. The data steward.
Data steward. How is that different?
The data steward typically has business responsibility related to the data's quality, its compliance, its usefulness. While the custodian worries if the database server is up, the steward worries if the customer addresses in the database are accurate and formatted correctly for marketing campaigns.
So more focused on the data content and context.
Exactly. They often act as a liaison between the business users, who need good data, and the IT custodians, who manage the systems. They handle data governance rules, data definitions, ensuring data quality.
Owner, accountable, classification, custodian, technical implementation,
Mhm.
steward, quality, usefulness.
Got it. What about third parties?
Good point. We have the data processor. This is any entity that processes data on behalf of the data owner.
Like a cloud provider, payroll service.
Classic examples. They are legally obligated to follow the data owner's instructions and implement appropriate security. And finally, we have the data subject.
The person the data is about. Yes. The individual whose personal data is being collected, processed, stored. Under modern privacy laws like GDPR, data subjects have significant rights regarding their own data.
Okay, that clarifies the roles. Now, organizations don't usually build their entire security program from thin air. They use frameworks, right?
Absolutely. Reinventing the wheel is inefficient and risky. Security control frameworks provide templates, best practices, and structured approaches to managing security.
What are the big ones we should know?
Well, internationally, the ISO/IEC 27000 series is huge. Specifically ISO 27001, which defines the requirements for an information security management system, or ISMS. It's auditable, certifiable,
So very formal.
very formal, globally recognized. In the
Yeah.
U.S., especially within the government and increasingly in the private sector, NIST is dominant.
NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology.
Right. They produce a ton of guidance. The NIST cybersecurity framework, CSF, is very popular for organizing security activities. And their special publications, like SP 853, provide massive catalogs of specific security controls.
How do ISO and NIST relate?
You could kind of say ISO 27001 tells you what you need to do, establish and manage an ISMS, and NIST 853 gives you a detailed menu of how you could do it, specific controls to choose from. Many organizations use both. Any others? COBIT. Control objectives for information and related technology is another major one, but it's often seen as more focused on overall IT governance and ensuring IT aligns with business goals, though it certainly covers security.
And more specialized ones.
Yeah, lots. PCI DSS is mandatory if you handle payment cards, credit cards, debit cards.
Right. Payment card industry data security standard.
FedRAMP is crucial for cloud providers wanting to sell services to the U.S. federal government. There are frameworks for industrial control systems, healthcare. The key is an organization picks a framework, or sometimes combines elements from several, and then tailors it to their specific needs, risks, and legal obligations.
Okay, this next concept, or rather pair of concepts, seems to be a real stumbling block for people. It comes up constantly in Domain 1 discussions and on the exam. Due care versus due diligence.
It's absolutely central. Understanding this distinction is key to the manager's view because it relates directly to legal liability and responsible management. If something goes wrong, regulators and lawyers will ask, did the organization exercise due care? Did it exercise due diligence?
So let's break it down. What is due care?
Due care is basically doing what a reasonable and prudent person would do under similar circumstances to protect others or assets. It's about establishing a standard of protection. It's often the initial act of setting up a control or a policy.
So due care is like setting the rule.
That's a great way to put it. Due care actions are often one-time or establishment acts. Senior management approving a new security policy, that's exercising due care.
Like the policy requiring strong passwords and MFAs.
Exactly. Or defining the key roles and responsibilities in the business continuity plan, BCP, establishing the target RPO, recovery point objective, how much data you can afford to lose, and RTO, recovery time objective, how quickly you need to be back up, setting security requirements for vendors before signing a contract. These are acts of establishing the standard due care.
Okay, if due care is setting the rule, then due diligence must be enforcing the rule.
Precisely. Due diligence is the ongoing effort to ensure that the rules and standards established by due care are actually being followed, maintained, and are effective. It's a continuous monitoring, testing, and verification part.
So due care is the saying, due diligence is the doing and checking.
Excellent analogy. Due diligence involves the operational activities that ensure the standard is met.
Let's use a practical example, say patching vulnerabilities.
Okay, due care would be management establishing and approving the vulnerability and patch management policy that mandates critical vulnerabilities must be patched within, say, 30 days of discovery. They set the standard.
That's due care. What's the due diligence part?
Due diligence is everything that follows. Regularly scanning systems to find the vulnerabilities. actually applying the patches according to the policy schedule, monitoring systems to ensure the patches were successful and didn't break anything, tracking compliance and generating reports to prove you're meeting that 30-day window, reviewing logs. That continuous activity is due diligence.
Okay, so let's imagine a failure. A system gets breached because of an unpatched critical vulnerability. Where do things go wrong?
It depends. If the executives never approved a patch management policy in the first place or set an absurdly long time frame like 180 days.
That's a failure of due care at the management level. They didn't set a reasonable standard.
Correct. Gross negligence, potentially. But what if the policy exists? The 30-day rule is clear, due care was met, but the sysadmin team just got busy, forgot, or didn't run the scans for months, and that's why the system was vulnerable.
Then the policy was fine, but the execution failed. That's a failure of due diligence.
Exactly. The organization established the reasonable standard, but failed in the ongoing effort to ensure it was met. This distinction is crucial in legal situations. Failure of due care looks much worse, suggesting systemic failure from the top. Failure of due diligence might point to operational issues or individual negligence, but at least the intent, the policy was there.
How does this apply to business continuity planning, BCP, and disaster recovery, DRP?
Same logic. Due care is management approving the BCP and DRP, defining the RTOs and RPOs based on business needs, allocating budget for a recovery site. That's setting the standard.
Okay.
Due diligence is all the work needed to make sure that plan is viable. This includes regularly testing the DRP. Can you actually restore from your backups? Does it happen within the required RTO? Conducting walkthroughs and simulations, reviewing third-party provider audit reports like their SOC reports or ISO certifications to ensure they are meeting the standards you set for them.
So if you write a beautiful DRP with a 4-hour RTO, get it approved, due care, but then never actually test if you can recover in 4 hours.
You failed at due diligence. You have a plan on paper, but no proof it works. That continuous verification, that follow-through, is the essence of due diligence. You have to keep checking. Hashtag TED, hashtag 3, risk management and personnel security.
And that ongoing checking, that due diligence, feeds directly into the core process of security management, which is risk management.
Absolutely. Risk management isn't a one-time project you finish. It's a continuous life cycle, a framework for making decisions.
Okay, walk us through that framework, that cycle.
It generally starts with identification. What are our valuable assets? What are the threats to those assets? Natural disasters, hackers, insider errors. What are the vulnerabilities in our systems or processes that those threats could exploit?
So know what you have, what can hurt it, and where you're weak.
Pretty much. Then you move into analysis. This is where you try to figure out the likelihood of a threat exploiting a vulnerability and what the impact would be if it happened. This could be qualitative, like high, medium, low risk, or quantitative, try to assign actual dollar values.
Okay, identify, analyze, then what?
Assessment and prioritization. You take all those identified and analyzed risks and you rank them. Which ones pose the biggest threat to the organization's mission? Which ones have the highest potential impact or likelihood? You can't fix everything at once, so you need to prioritize.
Focus resources where they matter most.
Exactly. And that leads to the decision point. Risk treatment, or sometimes called risk response. What are we actually going to do about these prioritized risks?
And this is where the manager has options, right? The 4 main strategies.
That's right. Once a risk is assessed, you generally have 4 choices. Let's start with the most drastic ones.
Okay.
First is risk avoidance. This means you decide to completely eliminate the activity or situation that creates the risk. If launching a new product in a politically unstable country carries too much security risk that you can't adequately control.
You just don't launch the product there. Avoid the risk entirely.
Exactly. Stop the activity. The opposite end of the spectrum is risk acceptance.
Just with it.
Essentially, yes. You acknowledge the risk exists, but you decide not to implement any specific controls against it. This is usually done when the cost of the countermeasure is way higher than the potential impact of the risk event itself.
Well, maybe the likelihood is incredibly low.
Or the likelihood is low, or maybe the potential business benefit of the activity strongly outweighs the potential downside. But, and this is critical, acceptance must be a conscious, documented decision, usually requiring sign-off from senior management. They need to formally accept the potential consequences.
Okay, so avoidance, stop doing it, and acceptance, live with it consciously. What are the other 2? These seem more common.
They generally are. Risk mitigation. This is what most security work is about. You implement controls, technical controls like firewalls and IDS, administrative controls like policies and training, physical controls like locks and guards to reduce either the likelihood of the risk occurring or the impact if it does occur, or hopefully both.
Reducing the risk to an acceptable level.
To an acceptable level, exactly. The fourth option is risk transfer.
Shifting the risk.
You shift the financial consequences of the risk to a third party. The absolute classic example is buying insurance.
Cybersecurity insurance.
Right. If you suffer a data breach, the insurance policy pays for some or all of the cleanup costs, legal fees, fines. You're transferring the financial impact.
But you're still responsible for the security itself.
Crucially, yes. Insurance doesn't absolve you of the responsibility to practice due care and due diligence. It just helps manage the financial fallout if things go wrong. Outsourcing functions can also be a form of risk transfer, but requires careful contract management.
Avoid, accept, mitigate, transfer, the 4 responses. But you said it's a cycle.
It has to be. The final stage, which feeds back to the beginning, is continuous monitoring and measurement. Threats change. Vulnerabilities emerge. Business priorities shift. You have to constantly monitor your controls, measure their effectiveness, reassess the risks, and adjust your strategy. It never really ends.
Okay, that makes sense for general risk. Let's pivot slightly to a specific area where risk management is critical. Business continuity requirements, making sure the business can survive a major disruption.
Yes, BCP planning is a core risk management activity.
When management starts thinking about continuity, what's the foundational analysis they need to perform?
Technically, the absolute foundation is the BIA, the Business Impact Analysis.
BIA, what does that involve?
The BIA is a deep dive. It systematically identifies the organization's critical business functions and processes. Then, for each one, it analyzes the impact, financial losses, operational disruption, reputational damage, if that function were unavailable over time.
So what breaks first and how bad is it?
Exactly. The BIA helps determine the MTD, maximum tolerable downtime, for each critical function. How long can we afford to be without this before the business suffers unacceptable harm? The BIA provides the data needed to prioritize recovery efforts and set those RTO and RPO targets we mentioned earlier.
So the BIA tells you what needs protecting and how quickly. Seems like step 1.
It should be step 1 for defining the requirements. But sometimes, in practice,
What happens?
management needs the business case first. Before they'll approve the significant time and resources needed to conduct a thorough BIA, they often want to see a high-level cost-benefit analysis for the entire BCP program. What's this going to cost us, and what's the potential return in terms of avoided losses?
So the justification might come before the detailed analysis, even though the analysis defines the justification? A bit circular.
It can feel that way. The business case gets the funding, then the BIA provides the detailed requirements to spend that funding wisely.
Okay, so let's say the BIA is done, the BCP-DRP is written. Now we need to make sure it works. Testing. You mentioned different types.
Yes, there's a hierarchy of testing, usually increasing in complexity, cost, and realism.
Start simple.
Start simple. A read-through, sometimes called a checklist review or a tabletop exercise. Key personnel gather in a room, review the plan document, talk through their roles and responsibilities in a hypothetical scenario. Low cost, low impact, good for familiarization.
Okay, just talking it through. Next level.
A walkthrough. Similar to a read-through, but might involve actually walking through physical steps, like visiting the recovery site, checking inventory lists, still primarily discussion-based but a bit more active, verifies the plan documentation against reality to some extent.
Getting more involved, what about actually testing systems?
Now you're moving into simulation. This is a more involved scenario-based test. Teams respond to a simulated disaster event, making decisions, coordinating actions, but usually without actually failing over or recovering real systems. It tests the human element, the communication, the decision-making process under pressure.
Okay, simulating the response without touching live systems. What if you want to test the tech?
Then you look at a parallel test. Here, you actually bring up the recovery systems at the alternate site, the hot site, maybe? You run operations there in parallel with the live production site.
So you're testing if the recovery site actually works.
Yes, without impacting production. You can process data, test applications, verify connectivity. It gives good technical validation, but doesn't simulate the pressure of a real cutover.
And the ultimate test, the most disruptive.
That's the full interruption test. This is the real deal. You intentionally shut down the primary system or site, and you force the organization to actually perform the full recovery process using the DRP. Cut over to the recovery site, operate there for a period, then fail back.
Sounds risky.
It is. It provides the highest level of assurance that the plan works, but it carries significant business risk. If the recovery fails during the test, you have a real outage. Requires meticulous planning and executive approval, often done incrementally or component by component.
Okay, comprehensive testing is key. Now, Let's shift focus from external disasters to internal risks. Personnel security, preventing problems caused by our own people.
A huge area. Insider risk is a major concern. We need administrative controls to manage access and behavior. Starts with limiting access.
How?
Two core principles: need to know and least privilege.
Okay, need to know. What does that mean?
Need to know is an administrative principle. It means that even if you have the appropriate security clearance or general access rights, you should only be given access to the specific information that you have a legitimate, defined business reason to see or use to perform your job duties.
So just because I can access something doesn't mean I should.
Exactly. It's based on job function and the sensitivity of the data. The default is no access unless a specific need is demonstrated.
And least privilege. Sounds similar.
It's the technical implementation, often, of need to know. Least privilege means granting a user account or even an application or service process the absolute minimum set of permissions, rights, and privileges necessary to perform its authorized tasks, and nothing more.
So if a user only needs to read files in a folder, don't give them write or delete permissions.
Precisely. Or if a service account only needs to query a database, don't give it administrative rights over the whole server. This limits the potential damage if that account or process is compromised or misused. Minimal necessary access.
Okay. Need to know, information access based on job, least privilege, system permissions based on function. What about preventing fraud or collusion?
You hear about controls like separation of duties, or ESO.
Separation of duties, splitting up tasks.
Yes, the core idea of ESO is to divide a single critical sensitive process into two or more separate tasks and assign those tasks to different people. This ensures that no single individual has end-to-end control over the process, making it much harder to commit fraud without being detected.
The classic example.
Purchasing. The person who can create a purchase order should not be the same person who can approve the payment to the vendor. You separate those duties to prevent someone from creating a fake invoice and paying themselves.
Makes sense. How is that different from two-person control? I hear that term too.
Good question. They're often confused. So ADA splits different tasks within a process. Two-person control, sometimes called the two-man rule, requires two authorized individuals to be present and cooperate to perform a single, specific, highly sensitive action.
So not splitting the task, but requiring two people for the same task.
Exactly. Think launching nuclear missiles requires two keys turned simultaneously. Or accessing a highly secure vault might require two different combinations or keys held by two different people. Or maybe approving a critical production code release requires sign-off from both development and operations leads concurrently.
So it's for extremely critical actions where even collusion is a major concern, or accidental error must be prevented.
Yeah, precisely. It provides immediate oversight for that one action. So ON-AD prevents one person controlling a whole process over time. Two-person control prevents one person executing a single critical step.
Got it. Any other key personnel controls? What about vacations?
Yes. Job rotation and mandatory vacations. These are really important detective and deterrent controls.
How does rotating jobs help security?
Job rotation moves employees between different roles or responsibilities periodically. Firstly, it helps with cross-training and reduces the risk of having single points of failure people who are indispensable. But crucially, from a security perspective, when someone new rotates into a role, they look at things with fresh eyes. They might uncover irregularities, errors, or even fraudulent activity that the previous person was hiding or had become complacent about.
A form of peer review.
Exactly. And mandatory vacations work similarly, forcing employees, especially those in sensitive financial or system administration roles, to take uninterrupted time off, usually at least 1 or 2 consecutive weeks.
Why force them?
Because someone else has to perform their duties while they're gone. This temporary replacement acts as a detective control. Many fraud schemes require constant management or covered up by the perpetrator. If they're forced out of the office for 2 weeks, the scheme might unravel or be discovered by the person filling in.
Can't hide things if someone else is doing your job.
Right. It deters fraud because people know their work will be looked at by someone else eventually, and it helps detect ongoing issues. #TAG, legal, regulatory, and compliance issues.
Okay, we've covered governance, risk, personnel controls. But security doesn't operate in a vacuum. There's this whole overlay of legal, regulatory, and compliance requirements.
Absolutely. Compliance isn't optional. Laws and regulations often set the minimum baseline for our security controls, especially around data, privacy, and financial reporting. They provide the legal teeth behind many security policies.
And compliance heavily influences things like data retention, right?
Profoundly. A key principle, especially driven by privacy regulations, is data minimization. You should only collect the data you absolutely need, use it only for the stated purpose, and perhaps most importantly, retain it only as long as necessary.
Why the emphasis on getting rid of data?
Simple risk management. Data you don't have cannot be breached. Retaining data indefinitely, just because you can, creates unnecessary liability. If you have a legal or business need to keep it for, say, 7 years, fine. But after that, securely dispose of it. Holding on to old data increases your attack surface and potential breach impact for no good reason.
Don't hoard data. Got it. What are some of the key regulations driving this? Privacy laws.
Privacy is huge. The GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation from the EU, has become a global benchmark. It grants extensive rights to individuals, data subjects regarding their personal data, imposes strict requirements on organizations, data controllers, and processors, and has hefty fines for noncompliance.
Even for companies outside the EU.
If they process data of EU residents, yes. It has extraterritorial reach. Other major ones include IPEA in the U.S. for healthcare information.
Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act.
Right. State-level laws like the CCPA, California Consumer Privacy Act, and its successor CPRA. New laws popping up globally, like Brazil's LGPD, South Africa's POPIA, China's PIPL. The landscape is complex and constantly evolving.
What's the common theme in these privacy laws?
Concepts like requiring a lawful basis for processing personal data, transparency, data subject rights, access correction, deletion, security obligations, breach notification requirements, and often principles like privacy by design and privacy by default.
Meaning build privacy in from the start.
Yes, don't just bolt it on later. Consider privacy implications when designing new systems or processes.
IP protection is another critical legal area for security. There are different types of IP, each with its own protection mechanism.
Like what?
First, trademarks. These protect brand identifiers, names, logos, slogans that distinguish your goods or services in the marketplace. Think the Nike swoosh or the name Coca-Cola. Requires registration, generally. Okay, trademarks for branding. What about creative works?
That's copyright. Copyright automatically protects the original expression of an idea fixed in a tangible medium. Software code, books, music, movies, website content. It gives the creator exclusive rights to reproduce, distribute, display, perform the work for a certain period, often life of the author plus 70 years.
So code is copyrighted. Got it. What about inventions?
Inventions, unique processes, new technologies, those were protected by patents. Getting a patent is a complex, expensive process involving detailed disclosure of the invention to the patent office. In return, you get an exclusive monopoly to use, sell, and manufacture that invention for a set period, typically 20 years from filing.
So disclosure in exchange for monopoly.
Right. The opposite approach is the trade secret.
Like the Coca-Cola formula.
Exactly. A trade secret is confidential business information that provides a competitive edge formulas, customer lists, manufacturing processes. Its protection doesn't rely on registration, but solely on the organization's ability to keep it secret. You have to take active, demonstrable steps to maintain secrecy. NDAs, access controls, etc.
And if the secret gets out?
The protection is lost. Unlike patents, trade secrets can potentially last forever as long as they remain secret.
How do we technically protect IP?
Controls like DRM, digital rights management, are used to control how copyrighted digital content can be used, copied, or distributed. Digital watermarks can embed hidden information into files to track ownership or detect unauthorized copies. Strict access controls and NDAs are vital for trade secrets.
Okay. Another legal challenge for global companies. Moving data across borders. Transborder data flow.
A huge headache. Many countries, especially under laws like GDPR, have strict rules about transferring personal data outside their borders. They often require that the destination country provides an adequate level of data protection, or that specific contractual safeguards, like standard contractual clauses, are put in place.
So you can't just move European customer data to a server anywhere in the world.
Not without ensuring those legal requirements for protection are met. This significantly impacts decisions about data center locations, cloud provider choices, and international business processes. Requires careful legal review.
Finally, in this legal section, sometimes security incidents lead to investigations. Are there different types?
Yes, and the type dictates the process and, crucially, the standard of proof required. Security professionals might get involved in several kinds.
Like a police investigation.
Right. A criminal investigation happens when a criminal law has potentially been broken. Hacking, data theft, denial of service attacks that violate specific statutes. The goal is prosecution, potentially leading to fines or imprisonment.
And the standard of proof.
The highest standard, beyond a reasonable doubt. The prosecution must convince the judge or jury that there's virtually no other logical explanation for the facts except that the defendant committed the crime. Requires very rigorous evidence handling, chain of custody.
Okay, criminal is high stakes. What about civil investigations?
Civil cases involve disputes between private parties or organizations,
Hmm.
often over things like breach of contract, negligence, or intellectual property infringement. The goal is usually monetary damages or injunctions, not jail time.
Lower standard of proof.
Much lower. Preponderance of the evidence. Means it just needs to be shown that it's more likely than not, the 50.1%, that the defendant is liable based on the evidence presented. Still requires proper evidence handling, but the burden is less extreme than in criminal court.
Any other types?
Yes. Regulatory investigations, where a government agency, like the FTC, SEC, or health regulators, investigates potential violations of specific regulations, HIPAA, SOX, GDPR. Penalties are often fines or mandated corrective actions. And administrative investigations, which are purely internal to an organization, looking into violations of company policy. The standard of proof here is usually set by internal policy. Understanding which type of investigation you might be supporting is crucial for how you collect and preserve evidence. Hashtag, outro, and final exam focus.
Wow, okay. We have covered a massive amount of ground in Domain 1, from the overarching manager's view and governance structures, down through risk management, personnel controls, and the legal landscape. It really is the foundation.
It truly is. Everything else builds on these concepts.
Before we wrap up, let's try to boil it down. If you had to pick the absolute 3 most critical takeaways from Domain 1 for someone facing the CISSP exam, what would they be?
Okay, 3 critical concepts. Number 1, internalize the manager's view. Always think risk, cost, benefit, and business alignment. The best answer is often the most reasonable and proportional one, not necessarily the most technical. Justify security in business terms.
Manager's view. Got it. Number 2.
Number 2, know the 5 pillars inside and out. Confidentiality, integrity, availability, plus authenticity and non-repudiation. Be able to instantly recognize which principle is being upheld or violated in any given scenario. They are the fundamental goals of security.
5 pillars.
All right.
Okay. And number 3.
Number 3, master the distinction between due care and due diligence. Due care is setting the reasonable standard, the policy, the rule. Due diligence is the ongoing work to ensure that standard is met. Testing, monitoring, auditing, enforcing. Understand that failing due diligence, the follow-through, is a major liability.
Manager's view, 5 pillars, due care, due diligence, solid recap. Now, think about the exam itself, that adaptive CCAT format. Any final tips specifically for tackling Domain 1 questions?
Remember that CISSP exams are compensatory overall. You don't need a perfect score in every domain. So if Domain 1 feels like your strength, really lean into it. Strong performance here can help balance out weaker areas elsewhere.
Okay, good point.
But because you can't go back on the CAT, you have to read each question very, very carefully the first time. Dissect the scenario. What is it really asking? Is it about policy, a technical control, a risk decision? Who is the actor management, technical staff, user? The context is everything.
Pay attention to keywords indicating perspective.
Absolutely. And look out for those absolute priorities. If a question involves potential harm to people, the answer must prioritize life safety. If it involves a clear legal or regulatory mandate, compliance usually takes precedence over cost or convenience.
Don't overthink the simple ones, maybe.
And don't rush, especially at the beginning. Those first questions help the algorithm gauge your level, gives them your full attention.
Okay, some great practical advice there. Let's leave our listeners with a final thought, something to mull over based on today's deep dive.
All right. Here's something to consider, building on that manager's view and due diligence. If your organization had a major security incident, like a serious data breach, reported on the news tomorrow,
Okay.
could you walk into the CEO's office, or potentially into court, and present concrete evidence logs, audit reports, vulnerability scan results, DR test outcomes, policy acknowledgments, demonstrating that you not only established reasonable security measures, due care, but that you consistently monitored, tested, and maintained them, due diligence, over the past year or more?
That's a high bar.
It is. But having that documented proof of ongoing due diligence, that can be the difference between the incident being seen as an unfortunate event despite reasonable efforts versus a finding of negligence due to a systemic failure to follow through. It's about demonstrating sustained effort, not just good intentions.
Powerful point. Evidence of diligence is key. Well, thank you for guiding us through that comprehensive look at the CISSP security and risk management mindset. That was incredibly insightful.
My pleasure. It's crucial stuff.
And thank you for joining us on the deep dive. Now it's your turn to take this and dive into your own study materials. We'll catch you on the next one.